The Trump administration announced last week it will ban scientists at the Department of Health and Human Services from conducting medical research using remains from aborted babies. HHS and the National Institutes of Health will not renew a contract with the University of California, San Francisco to fund research involving aborted baby body parts or fetal tissue. The official statement from the HHS department included this: promoting the dignity of human life from conception to natural death is one of the very top priorities of President Trump's administration. HHS will also convene an ethics advisory board to prevent funding for such projects. And here to discuss this major pro-life news out of the Trump administration is Mercedes Schlapp, the White House Director of Strategic Communications. Mercedes is also a Catholic wife and mother and joins us now from the White House North Lawn. Mercedes, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me.
What sparked this directive from the White House?
Well, I think for some time, the Department of Health and Human Services had been looking into this option of ending fetal research, tissue research. And so it was something that was brought to the attention of the president. The president made this decision. He was the one who said he did not believe that we should use any government funding or using, in this case, fetal tissue research. And that was a key message the president sent. He is someone who has been committed to the pro-life agenda since even his campaign. And this was a significant step that the administration made in ensuring that we weren't going to use taxpayer dollars to fund fetal tissue research that come from elective abortions.
Did the undercover Planned Parenthood videos released by David Daleiden from the Center for Medical Progress in 2015 play a role in this action?
You know, I don't know specifically. I can tell you that Senator Blackburn, for example, shared information with the president regarding her investigation into the use of the selling of fetal parts, which obviously has been so disturbing to watch those images. I can tell you for the president, this is something where he feels very strongly. It is ensuring that we don't use federal funding for abortions. It's why he's taken significant actions, including obviously stopping fetal tissue research from abortions being used in any way by the National Institute of Health, as well as, for example, his decisions that he made on Title X funding, which is, again, making sure that abortion providers wouldn't have access to those funds, which, as we know, would place a dent and have a negative impact on Planned Parenthood.
Should we anticipate to see more pro-life action from the Trump administration when it comes to fetal tissue research?
Well, I think this is a very significant step. This is actually stopping fetal tissue research in intramural projects that are managed by the National Institute of Health, as well as under the current statute, we need to have an ethics advisory board that would be involved in making these decisions regarding any fetal tissue research. So this is very significant in terms of ensuring that the federal funding is not utilized for these purposes. This is about protecting the sanctity of life, and also the fact that we're going to see investments being made of about $20 million to find alternatives to fetal tissue research. That is significant because we want to be able to produce additional models, different types of models, so that we can continue making progress in this area of research, but again, not focusing on fetal tissue research that, as we know, has been used for so long.
Speaking of alternatives, Mercedes, what do you say to critics who claim restrictions on fetal tissue research will hinder medical progress?
Well, I mean, we really haven't seen much in terms of fetal tissue research. And in essence, I think it's critical to be able to find these alternatives, to figure out a better way that we can find breakthroughs in medicine. And part of the reason why this administration is committed to this investment on alternatives. We are focused on ethical research, but we do believe that it is simply wrong to use fetal tissue in terms of that are coming from elective abortions for any sort of research projects that are intramural.
Mercedes, on a different pro-life topic, Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden recently flipped on his long-standing support for the Hyde Amendment. What's your reaction to this, and what does it indicate to you?
Well, again, as a White House official, I'm not allowed to comment on the Democratic candidate per se, but what I can tell you is that Democrats in general are now extreme. They are willing to give up any sense of morals and values and even protect the sanctity of life. They have no room in their party for any pro-lifers. And so I think when you look at the fact that Democrats, and so many Democrats, support late-term abortions, as we know, the governor of Virginia going out and saying, well, yes, you can have an abortion after the baby's born, make the baby comfortable. That is something that not even mainstream America agrees with. It is barbaric, as the president has said. It is executing a baby, as the president has said. And there is no room in America to go and support such extreme views on abortion. And in terms of ensuring for this president, as he's explained it so many times, where his goal has been to protect the unborn and ensure that we value every life. And obviously the Democrats are, I think, completely out of touch on this issue of abortion.
Mercedes Schlapp, White House Director of Strategic Communications, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Mallory Quigley is the Vice President of Communications for the Susan B. Anthony List. Mallory, thanks for being here.
Always a pleasure, Catherine.
Walk us through this announcement regarding fetal tissue research. What should our viewers know?
That's right. So in this announcement last week from HHS, we had the administration saying that they will no longer send taxpayer dollars to for any intramural, so research that is done on NIH campuses. Okay. We're not funding any more fetal tissue research there, and they've cut off a huge contract with University of California in San Francisco, where they were using body parts of aborted children on taxpayer-funded experiments. We're no longer funding that, and any future research is going to have to be vetted by an ethics review board that Congress is going to set up, and it's great news. It's a victory many years in the making.
Mallory, what will this do to prevent the trafficking
Right.
of aborted baby body parts?
Well, up until now, $120 million of our taxpayer money has been being spent by NIH on research involving fetal tissue. And so this cuts off the demand. And again, there are alternatives to the hearts, lungs, livers of these babies. It's just such a degradation. These children have been killed, and now to use their bodies for these gruesome experiments, especially when it's not necessary, it's not yielding any good. It's a degradation, and we're stopping that as a nation. That's really excellent.
And do clarify for us, have there been medical advancements from this type of research?
Right. And if you're reading any of the the mainstream news coverage on this fact is being obscured, but there have been no advances from research involving fetal tissue for more than 100 years. Polio, rubella, these vaccines, they are not made using fetal tissue. Research into Zika and HIV, there are alternatives that we can use. The fetal tissue is not required. And our scholars at the Lozier Institute, Dr. Tara Sander-Lee, who I know you've had on before, and Dr. David Prentice, have done extensive research on this. And lozierinstitute.org, there's a whole fact sheet on the reality.
That's a great resource for our viewers. Finally, Mallory, on a different topic, I do want to get your reaction to former Vice President Joe Biden.
Yes.
And his announcement that he is now flipping his long-standing support for the Hyde Amendment. Can you put this into context for us?
Right. Well, the Hyde Amendment, of course, is a decades-old, popular, bipartisan policy that says, hey, we are not going to use taxpayer dollars to fund elective abortion in the Medicaid program. It's saved more than 2 million lives since its inception in the 70s. And about 60,000 lives a year are protected thanks to the Hyde Amendment. And this is something that for many years was supported by Democrats. And in fact, when you look at the polling, we see a third of Democrats identify as pro-life. A majority of Americans oppose taxpayer funding of abortion. This is really his flip, flop, flip, because he has taken now multiple positions in the last few weeks, is really unpopular even with Democrats' own base, not to mention the rest of the country. So it's really troubling now that the entire 2020 Democrat side, the whole field, is uniformly pro-abortion, pro-taxpayer funding of abortion, and this is really an extreme position to take, and they're very out of step with the majority of Americans.
Absolutely. Mallory Quigley, Vice President of Communications for the Susan B. Anthony List, thank you again for being here.
Thanks, Catherine.